Do you know what is the similarity between a butterfly and the economy? Don't worry, I have not lost my senses. Just here to give you a perspective. Alright, so let's talk about the butterfly first. You might be aware about its life cycle. It starts with an egg, hatching into a caterpillar, growing into a pupa or chrysalis, and then finally getting its wings and turning into a beautiful creature. Now, coming back to our question, similarity between a butterfly and the economy. Did you know that businesses and economy also have a life cycle, just like a butterfly or any other creature on the planet? Did you also know that recession is part of a business cycle and it's normal? Recession is normal? Yeah, absolutely. Is the US economy slowly sliding down into recession? Want to know more? Stick on till the end and I'll tell you all. For more such content, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so that you don't miss out on anything. Alright, before we get to recession, let's first understand what is a business cycle and what stages it covers. A business cycle represents the stages which a business has to go through during its lifetime. It shows the fluctuations that take place in the business or economy depending on the growth prospects. It usually has 6 stages, namely expansion, peak, recession, depression, trough, and recovery. The below diagram represents a business cycle. In this video, recession will be our main focus. If you want to know more about any other stages, drop a comment and let us know. So, what exactly is this recession? Simply put, recession is a phrase where economic growth slows for a significant period of time. In macroeconomics, recession is officially recognized after 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth rates. But how do we know that the growth is slow for a long time or just momentary? To find this out, there are various indicators or signs that whether a recession phase is coming or if it's a minor routine fluctuation. So here are the top 5 favorite indicators of a recession of well-known economists worldwide, and they are present in the US economy. Let's find out. The first indicator is gross domestic product, that is GDP. This GDP is adjusted for inflation and then considered for calculations regarding recession. A declining GDP for a continuous period of 2 quarters hints at a recession. In the US, for the first time since early in the pandemic, it decreased to an annual rate of 1.4% in the first quarter of 2022. Since many economists agree that 2% is a healthy annual rate of growth for GDP, a negative quarter to start the year suggests the economy might be shrinking. So, this is a subtle hint that the recession is peaking around from the corner of the street. The second indicator is rising inflation and hike in interest rates to curb it down. When interest rates are increased to cut inflation, revenue or sales figures of companies drop, leading to lower profits and lower corporate taxes. As we all know, that taxes form a major source of revenue for the government. In USA, they account for almost 25% of the total GDP. So when tax collection reduces, GDP also declines. The current rate of inflation in US is about 8.6%, and the Fed has hiked interest rates by 75 basis points to cut it down. Let's give it some time and see what impact it has on the economy. A third indicator is asset prices, whether they're stock prices or house prices going up a lot. And they exceed the fundamentals, and then suddenly, they come down abruptly. In particular, if people have borrowed to buy those assets. When that happens, people find out that they're not as wealthy as they thought they were. And when you find out that you're not as wealthy as you thought you were, you cut back on your spending. And as you cut back on your spending, that decreases demand in the economy, and it slows the economy down. And then enough of it can cause a recession. Is this happening in the US? Sure, it is. You look at the stock prices, all in red and only red. Look at the cryptocurrencies, all nosediving. If this does not indicate a recession, what does? The fourth indicator is related to black swan events, such events which cannot be predicted or anticipated and which have beyond normal expectations and have potentially severe consequences. For example, COVID-19, Russia-Ukraine aggression, etc. The consequences of these events include supply chain disruptions, political instability, human psychological issues, etc. People react in a certain way to such situations. For example, we are quick to buy something which we know is going to rise in the near future, so we get that quick buck. As soon as one single negative news comes out, we start panicking and selling it. This psychology ultimately leads to recessions. So again, is this happening in the US? Well, gas prices are at an all-time high due to demand-supply shocks of Russia-Ukraine war, and economy has not fully recovered from the COVID-19 impact yet, and there is still panic selling in the stock markets due to negative consumer sentiments about future growth prospects. Well, I think you know what I'm going to say next. Yes, recession waiting for the right time to strike. The fifth indicator is yield curve, one of the most closely watched indicators of an impending recession. A yield is simply the interest rate on a bond or treasury. These treasuries have different lengths of duration, known as their maturity. Some bonds last 1 month, some last 30 years. The curve, therefore, compares how those interest rates change over time. Typically, the interest rate is higher on a bond with a longer maturity. Interest rates here implies how the US government issuing these securities compensates investors for risks. If you're an investor and you're given the choice for investing for a month or investing for 10 years, you would say, listen, a lot more can go wrong in 10 years than it can in a month. I'm going to demand a higher interest rate, a higher yield, says Dan North, chief economist at Euler Hermes North America. When this curve becomes downward sloping, it means that investors are demanding a higher yield for short duration bonds because they think that it is riskier to hold the bond in short duration. Right now, the US Treasury yield curve is downward sloping by around 32 basis points, and this figure is expected to rise in the near future. So here we go again, recession bells sounding in the distance. However, nothing to panic here, because these are all just signs, and nothing is proven yet. There are simply forecasts, and we all know forecasts and prediction can go terribly wrong. Some economists are even scared that it is too quick to declare a recession now. However, it might be the start. Things are not out of control yet. Let us wait and watch what monetary policy is implemented next, and whether this recession can be avoided. So while you wait, we move on to making our next video, so make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to receive all updates. Comment and tell us what do you want to watch next.